And you'll have...
Good evening, everyone. I am so delighted to welcome everyone to Our Town for Legal Aid. We have been putting this together for many months, and it's hard to believe that we're finally here at our evening of special music and words in celebration of the amazing work of the Legal Aid Society, which provides free civil legal services to those in need in our community. And all of you who are watching here in the theater tonight and on live stream are supporting legal aid by doing just that, and we're so incredibly grateful. I'm particularly grateful to introduce the group that is about to play music for you tonight. When I was 18 years old, I met Greg Artzner and Terry Nino on the stage of the Shaker Heights High School auditorium. I was introduced to them by James Thornton, the director of the theater program at Shaker, who was a longtime friend of Greg and Terry's. And they made beautiful music in Shaker with us when I was 18 that haunted and enchanted me for my whole life. And I can hardly believe that on my 50th birthday, they are here with me in Cleveland to play their music for you tonight. So without further ado, for our pre-show, for our 30-minute pre-show, let me introduce Greg Artzner and Terry Leonino, the great Magpie.
All of the riverboat gamblers are losing their shirts, and all of the brave Union soldier boys sleep in the dirt. But you know and I know there never was reason to hurt when all of our lives were entwined to begin with here in Spoon River. Dresses, the gingham and lace are up in the attic with grandfather's Derringer case. There's words whispered soft in the parlor, a shadowy face. Here in Spoon River. I like you right well.
Thank you. Well, that song was written by Michael Smith from Chicago and was included in a production of Edgar Lee Masters' Spoon River Anthology that was done, quite a few years ago, I think back in the 70s. But, of course, the themes are themes that are also heard and touched upon in the play that we were about to hear tonight. And so it felt perfectly and totally appropriate to sing that tonight. We're going to do another, what John asked us to do was some songs of, Americana. Well, what does Americana mean? We wanted to get some Americana songs that actually connected somehow with this story, and
This
they
one
all
is
do in a
written.
way.
Yeah, this one is written by Woody Guthrie, the
Is it Woody
same
Guthrie?
guy that wrote "This Land Is Your Land," and it's called "Heaven My Home." Trying to make heaven my home, home. Trying to make heaven my home, sweet home. This old world just ain't my home. Trying to make heaven my home. Sing it with me now. Trying to make heaven my home, home. Trying to make heaven my home, sweet home. This old world just ain't my home. Trying to make heaven my home. Big wind blowed my crops all away. This world ain't my home. Looks like I just can't make the grade. Gotta make heaven my home. Trying to make heaven my home, home. Trying to make heaven my home, sweet home. This old world just ain't my home. Trying to make heaven my home. And hold my dike against all this blood. This world ain't my home. Gonna wash my soul in the Savior's blood. Gotta make heaven my home. I'm trying to make heaven my home, home. Trying to make heaven my home, sweet home. This old world just ain't my home. Trying to make heaven my home. Why does everybody run and hide from me? This world ain't my home. Gotta try to love everybody that I see. Gotta make heaven my home. Trying to make heaven my home, home. Trying to make heaven my home, sweet home. This old world just ain't my home. Trying to make heaven my home. I live and I bend, I sweat and I strain. This world ain't my home. Every job I touch is aches and pains. Gotta make heaven my home. I'm trying to make heaven my home, home. Trying to make heaven my home, sweet home. This old world just ain't my home. Trying to make heaven my home. I'm trying to make heaven my home, home. Trying to make heaven my home, sweet home. This old world just ain't my home. Trying to make heaven my home. Well,
Well,
because there was a reference to dancing,
Oh, yeah.
and of course in our town, that's what people did for recreation. They listened to music and they went dancing.
This song was written by our old friend, Bill Staines.
Now, honey, we're old too.
Well, yeah, we're almost as old as Bill. I think he's older than me. Anyway, this is a pretty well-known song of Bill's, and it's called Roseville Fair.
Folk music means you're supposed to sing when you feel like it.
The night was clear, stars were shining, and the moon came up, so quiet in the sky. All the people gathered round, and the band was tuning. I can hear them now, playing Coming Through the Ride. You were dressed in blue, and you looked so lovely, just a gentle flower of a small town girl. You took my hand, and we stepped to the music in a single smile. You became my world, and we danced all night to the fiddle and the banjo. Their drifting tunes seemed to fill the air so long ago, but I still remember when we fell in love at the Roseville Fair. We courted well, and we courted dearly. We'd rock for hours in the front porch chair, and the years went by from the time that I met you, and I made you mine at the Roseville Fair. And we danced all night to the fiddle and the banjo. Their drifting tunes seemed to fill the air so long ago, but I still remember when we fell in love at the Roseville Fair. So here's a song for all of the lovers, and here's a tune that they all can share. May they dance all night to the fiddle and the banjo, the way we did at the Roseville Fair. May they dance all night to the fiddle and the banjo, the way we did at the Roseville Fair. Thank you. Well, Dave Gordon was a friend of ours who wrote great songs, lived down in southwestern Ohio, down around Dayton, and he had a knack for just writing great tunes and telling stories, the struggles of people just trying to get by in this life. And we've always loved this song. We've been singing it for a long, long time, and when John asked us to do this, we immediately thought, well, no, this is the song that we would do in dedication to Legal Aid, because this is a story of a young man who might well have benefited from the help.
And we need to applaud Legal Aid because they're doing work that nobody else is doing. So give them a nice round of applause. This is called Slip of the Hand.
Well, the High Point police were my buddies. Each Saturday evening we'd meet
While I was neglecting my studies, they'd chase me down Sycamore Street.
It was kinda like going out dancing with the whistles and lights flashing red. They must have thought I was Charles Manson, and the sirens were music instead. 'Cause they beat the time on my head. And if I had it all to do over again, I'd shout it from each witness stand, that the difference between the dirty and clean is only the slip of the hand. Slip of the hand, slip of the hand, only a slip of the hand.
Well, I guess I was seeing my share of the laws being broken and bent. But the next thing that I was aware of, Ohio was paying my rent. We held up a 7-Eleven, the son of a banker and me. Now I'm number 12607, and he's member FDIC. So Mr. O, say, can you see? It's the end of your future, the end of your youth, the end of whatever you planned. From reaching for stars to a life behind bars is only a slip of the hand. Slip of the hand, slip of the hand, only a slip of the hand. Now outside these walls are the faces of people whose freedom was bought, of people with friends in high places, and others who never got caught. And they tell us the prices have risen. Most of us think that's a crime, but here in the Lucasville prison, we're having a hell of a time. And they tell ya, you gotta be strong, son. Don't steal, don't gamble or fight. But there's too many strong to do nothing that's wrong, and not enough strong to do right. Sweet Jesus, I'm lonesome tonight. And how can I shut up and how can I sleep, knowing some of you don't understand that any fool kid could have done what I did with only a slip of the hand. Slip of the hand, slip of the hand, only a slip of the hand. So you High Point police in your cruisers, and all of you cops on the beat, go line up a few local losers and chase them down Sycamore Street.
Thank you. We're going to do an old folk song now. This is well, it's a folk song only because
I think it was written in 1899.
No, it was written after that.
Okay.
It had to be because it's about the assassination of William McKinley. Which,
Oh, you're right.
Which took place
You're right, imagine my embarrassment.
Oh, it's all right. It took place in the same year that this play begins, in 1901.
Oh, that's why we picked it.
And of course, I'm from Canton, and I told Jonathan earlier I really appreciated the way that he pronounced the name of my hometown, because you don't pronounce it Canton, it's pronounced Canton. And when I was a kid, I spent a sizable amount of time, a measurable amount of time, in terms of in terms of weeks, maybe even months, if you added it all up, inside of William McKinley's tomb, because it's a great place to sing. If you've ever been down to Canton, you should go on down there and see that place. It's kind of amazing. You just go in there and sing at the top of your lungs. So anyway, this is an old song that was written about it, and we culled together like 4 or 5 different versions of it in order to bring this out. And then we actually corrected the ending, because he's not in the original version. Said he's in a graveyard, but he's not in a graveyard. He's in a gigantic mausoleum inside of a gigantic black marble box. But the rest of this story is pretty much true. Are you ready?
D, right?
McKinley, he ain't done no wrong. He went up to Buffalo way, Michigan, long for to lay him down, for to lay him down. Mr. McKinley, he went there for fun. Shaw, gosh, he shot him with an Ivor Johnson gun for to lay him down, for to lay him down. Engine at the station, see if I could run it by 9:30 to Buffalo, to Buffalo. Oh, yonder, hear that whistle, she's coming down the line, blowing every station. McKinley with a rag over his hand for to lay him down, for to lay him down. McKinley, he hollered, McKinley, he squalled. Doc said, McKinley, I can't find that ball, gonna let it be, gonna let it be. Mrs. McKinley, she hollered and she swore when they told her her good man wasn't coming home no more, for to lay him down, for to lay him down. Jailer asked Shaw, gosh, what are you doing here? I took and shot McKinley, gonna take the electric chair in Buffalo, in Buffalo. So Shaw, gosh, they put him in the electric chair. They shocked him so hard that they shocked off all his hair for to lay him down, for to lay him down. That last long train to Canton, they took McKinley home and laid him in a big black box made of marble stone up on a hill, up on a hill. Now Roosevelt's in the White House doing his level best. McKinley's in that monument taking his level rest. He's gone, solid gone.
So before Craig and Terry do their last song, we're going to ask the cast to line up outside. So all cast members, if you're still in here, get outside. And huge thank you to Greg and Terry for this beautiful music that brings me back to high school when I first heard them. Thank you, Greg and Terry. And you'll hear more of them in the show.
This last song was written by our hero. We have many heroes and sheroes, and this is by Pete Seeger. He's also a dear, dear friend of ours, or was, I should say.
Thank you very much.
This play is called Our Town. It was written by Thornton Wilder, produced by me, for the benefit of the amazing Legal Aid Society of Cleveland, which does such great work for this community. Let's give an applause to Legal Aid. Directed by Vince Cardinal, and in it you will see Michelle Federer, Peter Lawson Jones, Gina Davidson, Beth Grove, Kimberly Butler, my son, Jaren Leiken, Brandt Butze, and many others, too numerous to mention. You will also continue to hear the amazing music of Greg Artzner and Terry Leonino, the folk duo Magpie, Sarah Smith on the piano, playing the organ. And at the end of the first act, we will take a 5-minute break to stretch our legs, and then we will come back in. We will hear a song from Magpie, and then we'll start the second act. I will remind you of that at the end of the first act. So the name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line. Latitude 42 degrees, 40 minutes. Longitude 70 degrees, 37 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. The sky is beginning to show some streaks of light over there in the east behind our mountain. The morning star always looks wonderful bright the minute before it has to go, doesn't it? Well, I better show you how our town lies. Now, up here is Main Street. The railway station is way back there, Polish towns across the tracks, and some Canuck families. Congregational church is over here. Across the street is the Presbyterian. Methodist and Unitarian are over there, and Baptist is down in the holla by the river. Catholic church is way beyond the tracks. Now over here is the town hall and post office combined, jail's in the basement. Brian once made a speech from these very steps right here. Along here is a row of stores, hitching posts and horse blocks in front of them. The first automobile is going to come around in about 5 years. It was owned by banker Cartwright, our richest citizen. He lives up in the big white house on the hill over there. Here's the grocery store and Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody in town manages to look into those two stores about once a day. Now, the public school is over yonder. The high school is still farther over. 9 o'clock in the morning, noontime, 3 o'clock, the whole town can hear the yelling and screaming from those schoolyards. Over here is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs, and this is the back door. Oh, there's some scenery for those who think they have to have scenery. And here is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Hollyhocks, peas, beans, heliotrope, and a whole lot of burdock. Now, in those days, our local newspaper come out twice a week, the Grover's Corners Sentinel, and this is Editor Webb's house, and this is Mrs. Webb's garden, just like Mrs. Gibbs, only it's got a lot of sunflowers too. Oh, and over here is a great big butternut tree. Nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody ever remarkable has ever come out of it, as far as we know. The oldest dates on the tombstones up in the cemetery, up on the mountain, say 1670, 1680. They're Grovers and Cartwrights and Herseys and Gibbses. Same names as around here now. So as I said, it's about dawn. Now the only lights on in town are over in Polish Town, where a young mother's just given birth to twins. And in the Joe Crowell house, where Joe Jr. is getting ready to deliver the newspaper. And down at the depot, where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 545 for Boston. Now, naturally, out in the country, lights have been on for some time, what with milkins and so going on, but town people sleep late. So, another day's begun. There's Doc Gibbs coming down Main Street now, coming back from that baby case, and here is his wife coming downstairs to get breakfast. Now, Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital is named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, long time ago, in fact. She went out to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there. pneumonia. She's up in the cemetery now with a whole bunch of Herseys and Gibbses. She was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church, right over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. And there's Mrs. Webb coming downstairs to get her breakfast, too. Now, Doc Gibbs got that call at 1:30 in the morning. And here comes Joe Crowell delivering Mr. Webb's Sentinel.
Morning, Doc Gibbs.
Morning, Joe.
Somebody been sick, Doc?
No, just some twins, born over in Polish Town.
Do you want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it. Anything serious going on in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My school teacher, Miss Foster's getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
I declare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course it's none of my business, but I think if a person starts out to be a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Fine, Doc. I never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tells me when it's going to rain.
Well, what's it telling you today? Going to rain?
No, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Knee ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
I want to tell you something about that boy, Joe Crowell there. Joe was awful bright, graduated head of his class, and he got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. Graduated head of his class there, too. It was all wrote up in the Boston paper. He was going to be a great engineer, Joe was, but the war broke out, and he died in France. All that engineering for nothing.
Giddy up, Bessie. What's the matter with you today?
Here comes Howie Newsome delivering the milk.
Morning, Doc.
Morning. Howie.
Somebody sick?
No, pair of twins. Over to Mrs. Gorzlowski's.
Twins, eh? This town gets bigger every year.
Going to rain, Howie?
No, it's going to be a fine day. It'll burn through. Now, come on, Bessie.
Hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Well, she's going on 17. You see, Bessie's all mixed up about the route ever since the Lockharts stopped taking their quart of milk every day. She wants to keep my quart just the same, keeps scolding me for the whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. Doc's just coming down the street.
Is he? Seems like you're late today.
Yes, something went wrong with the separator. Don't know what it was. Doc!
Howie.
Children! Children! Time to get up.
Well, come on, Bessie.
George! Rebecca! Everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare, easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. Can you catch a couple hours sleep this morning, do you think?
Mrs. Wentworth's coming at 11. Guess I know what that's about, too. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
Well, all told, you won't get more than 3 hours sleep. Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I do wish that I could get you to go away and someplace and take a rest. I think it'd be good for you.
Emily! Time to get up.
I declare, you got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
Oh, no, he just whines, and all he thinks about is baseball. George! Rebecca!
George, look sharp.
Yes, Paul?
Don't you hear your mother calling you? I guess I'll go upstairs and get 40 winks.
Wally! Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, you wash yourself good or I'll come up and do it myself.
Ma, what dress shall I wear?
Shh, don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night. He needs his sleep. I washed and ironed the blue gingham one for you special.
Ma, I hate that dress.
Oh, hush up with you.
Every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Mama, George is throwing soap at me.
I'll come and slap both of you is what I will do.
We got a factory in our town. Hear it? Makes blankets. Cartwrights own it, and it brung them a fortune.
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth, that's fact. Put away your book, Wally.
Oh, Ma, by 10 o'clock, I gotta know all about Canada.
You know the rules as well as I do. No books at the table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
I'm bright too when I'm looking at my stamp collection.
I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. It seems to me that 25 cents a week's enough for a boy your age. I declare I don't know what you spend it on.
Aw, Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual.
Well, dear, I think it's a good thing to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I want more in the world, do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
Mama, there's the first bell.
That's the first bell. I gotta hurry.
All right,
I don't want any more.
all right. Tell Miss Foster I send her my best congratulations. Can you remember that?
Yes, Ma.
Rebecca, pick up your feet.
Walk fast, but you don't have to run. Wally, pull up your pants at the knee. Stand up straight, Emily.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Here, chick, chick, chick. Here, chick, chick, chick. No, go away. You go away. Here, chick. Now, what do you two do? You're always fighting. Well, who do you belong to? Where did you come from? Oh, don't be scared. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Well, good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Well, I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles, I don't know as I'd go to choir practice tonight. Wouldn't be any use.
Well, have you tried singing over your voice?
Well, yes, but sometimes I just can't do that and stay on the key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd string some of these beans.
Oh, let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
I've decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say they hate them, but I notice they're able to get them down all winter.
Myrtle, I've got to tell you something, because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst.
Why, Julia Gibbs?
Here, give me some of those beans. Myrtle, did one of those second-hand furniture men from Boston come to visit you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. First, I thought he was a patient wanting to see Doc Gibbs, and he wormed his way into my parlor. And Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs?
He did, that old thing. Boy, it was so big, I never knew what to do with it. I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know. $350, what's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a real trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's always been a dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know. It sounds crazy, I suppose, but for years I've been promising myself that if I ever had the chance.
How does the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat around the bush a little bit, and said that if I got a legacy, that's how I put it, if I got a legacy, I'd make him take me somewhere.
Mm-hmm. What did he say?
Well, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing all over Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years he makes a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's treat enough for anyone, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair.
Well, it is a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over the hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pacing it all out like we're gonna buy the place.
Well, if that second-hand man's really serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And then you'll get to see Paris, all right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only it seems to me that once in your life, before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't talk in English, and they don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to skip a few hours, but first we want some more information about the towns, kind of a scientific account. So I've asked Professor Willard of our state university to sketch in a few details for you. Now, is Professor Willard here in the auditorium?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Professor Willard, may I introduce Professor Willard of our state university? A few very brief notes, Professor. Our time is limited.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You want to know about Grover's Corners? Let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pleistocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest land in the world, and we're very proud of it. A shelf of Devonian basalt crosses it with vestiges of Mesozoic shale and some sandstone outcroppings. But that's all, more recent, 200, 300 million years old. Some highly interesting fossils have been found. I'd say some unique fossils out of town in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. They can be seen at the museum at any time. That is, at any reasonable time. Shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation?
No. We will not have time for that, Professor. Thank you. We might have a few words on the history of man here.
Anthropological data. Early Amerindian stock. Cotahatchee tribes. No evidence before the 10th century of this era. It's now entirely disappeared. Possible traces in 3 families. Migration toward the end of the 17th century of English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock for the most part. Since then, some Slav and Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor Willard?
Within the town limits, 2,640.
Just a moment, Professor Willard.
Oh, the Polish twins. Population at the moment, 2,642. The Postal District brings in 507 more, making it a total of 3,149. Mortality and birth rates are constant by McPherson's gauge, 6.032.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Yes, sir.
We're very obliged to you, I'm sure. Thank you, Professor Willard. Professor Willard, ladies and gentlemen. Now the political and social report from Editor Webb. Editor Webb, will you please come up?
Oh, he'll be here in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles! Everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is our publisher and editor of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper,
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males vote at the age of 21. Women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, sprinkling of professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republicans, 6% Democrats, 4% socialists, rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
Well, very ordinary town, if you ask me. A little better behaved than most, probably a lot duller. But our young people here seem to like it well enough. 90% of them graduate from high school, settle down right here to live, even when they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask Editor Webb a question?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know what you'd call much. Saturday nights, the farm hands meet down in Ellery Greenow's stable and holler some. We've got 1 or 2 town drunks, but they're always having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in the home here, except in the medicine chest. Right good for snake bite, always was.
Is there anyone in town?
Hey, Professor Willard, can you come forward so we can hear you?
I said, is there anyone in town aware of social injustice and industrial inequity?
Yes, everybody is. Something terrible. Seems like they spend most of their time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting like everybody else for a way that the diligent and the sensible can rise to the top and the lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom. But it ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those that can't help themselves, and those that can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corners?
Well, sir, there ain't much, not in the sense you mean. Come to think of it, there's some girls that play piano at the high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. No, sir, there isn't much culture. But maybe this is the place to tell you that we've got a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountain in the morning, and we all notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them. And we watch the change of the seasons. Yes, everybody knows about them. But those other things, you're right, sir, there ain't much. Robinson Crusoe and the Bible and Handel's Largo, we all know that, and Whistler's Mother. But those are just about as far as we go.
So I thought. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we'll go back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners. All the dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm in our town, a buzzing and humming from the school buildings, only a few buggies on Main Street, the horses dozing at the hitching posts. You all remember what it's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office, tapping people, making them say, ah. Mr. Webb is cutting his lawn. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. Actually, it's later than I thought. There are children coming home from school already.
I can't, Lois. I have to go home and help my mother. I promised.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you. Mwah.
Well, golly, I never before got a kiss from such a great lady.
Excuse me, Mrs. Forrest.
Go out and play in the fields, young man. You got no business playing baseball on Main Street.
Awfully sorry, Mrs. Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corcoran made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your head nights when you're doing your homework over in your room.
Why can you?
You certainly do stick to it, Emily. I don't see how you can sit still that long. I guess you like school.
Well, I always feel it's something you have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
Yeah. Emily, what do you think? We might work out a kind of telegraph from your window to mine, and once in a while, you could give me a kind of hint or two about one of those algebra problems. I don't mean the answers. Of course not. Just some little hint.
I think hints are allowed, so if you get stuck, George, you whistle to me, and I'll give you some hints.
Emily, I just guess you're naturally bright.
I figure that it's just the way a person's born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer, and my Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm, and if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, thanks. I better be getting out to baseball field. Thanks for the talk, Emily. Good afternoon, Mrs. Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come here and help me string these beans for the winter. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Why, he's growing up. How old would George be?
I don't know.
Let's see, he must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today, and I was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it all about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm gonna make speeches all my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try and get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, will you answer me a question, serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Oh, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you yes. Now that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. I've never heard such foolishness.
Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
Yes, I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town next to Mamie Cartwright.
But Mama, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody? To get people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired. Now stop it. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Now come along and bring that bowl with you.
Mama, you're no help at all.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Webb. Thank you, Emily. I think it's a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have just begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. They had to go to Vermont for the marble, I'm sorry to say. And they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Now, of course, they put a copy of the New York Times and editor Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellas have found a way of painting all that reading material with a glue, a silicate glue, that'll make it keep for 1,000, 2,000 years. So we're putting in a Bible and the Constitution of the United States, a copy of William Shakespeare's plays, but what do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and all we know about them is the names of some kings and some copies of wheat contracts and contracts for the sale of slaves. Yet every night, those families sat down for supper, and the father come home from work, and the smoke went up the chimney, just like here. And even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of the people is what we can put together from the joking poems and the comedies they wrote for theater back then. So I'm going to have a copy of this play put in that cornerstone, and the people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us, more than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindbergh flight. You see what I mean? So people 1,000 years from now, well, this is the way we were in the provinces of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up, and in our marrying, and in our living, and in our dying.
Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts in Christian love, the fellowship of kindred minds is like to that above.
Well, a good deal of time has passed. It's evening now. You can hear choir practice going on over there in the Congregational Church. The children are all at home doing their schoolwork. The day's running down like a tired clock.
Now look here, everybody. Music come into the world to give pleasure. Softer. Softer! Get it out of your heads that music's only good when it's loud. You leave loudness to the Methodists. You couldn't beat them even if you wanted to. Now, again, tenors.
Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts.
Emily.
Hello?
Hello.
I can't work at all. The moonlight's so terrible.
Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third.
Why, yes, George, that's the easiest of them all.
I don't see it. Emily, can you give me a hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer's in yards.
In yards? How do you mean?
In square yards.
Oh, in square yards.
Yes, George, don't you see?
Yeah.
In square yards of wallpaper.
Wallpaper. Oh, I see. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. My, isn't the moonlight terrible? And choir practice going on. I think if you hold your breath, you can hear the train all the way to Contacook. Hear it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you know?
Well, I guess I better go back and try to work.
Good night, Emily. And thanks.
Good night, George.
Before I forget it, how many of you will be able to come in Tuesday afternoon and sing at Fred Hershey's wedding? Now show hands. That'll be fine. That'll be right nice. We'll do the same music we did for Jane Trowbridge's last month. Now we'll do Art Thou Weary, Art Thou Languid. It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk. Ready?
Art thou weary, art thou languid, art thou sore distressed? Come to me, saith
George,
and
can you come down a minute?
Yes, Pa.
Make yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you a minute. George, how old are you?
I'm 16, almost 17.
Well, what do you want to do after school's over?
Why, you know, Pa. I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
You'll be willing, will you, to get up early and milk and feed the stock, and you'll be able to hoe and hay all day?
Sure I will. What do you mean, Pa?
Well, George, while I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. And what do you think it was? It was your mother chopping wood. There, you see your mother getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, and still she has to go out in the backyard and chop wood. I suppose she just got tired of asking you. She just gave up and decided it was easier to do it herself. And you eat her meals and put on the clothes she keeps nice for you, and you run off and play baseball. Like she's some hired girl we keep around the house, but we don't like very much. Well, I knew all I had to do was call your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief, son. George, I've decided to raise your spending money 25 cents. Not, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, because that's a present you give to her, but because you're getting older. And I imagine there are lots of things you must find to do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Let's see. Tomorrow's your payday. You can count on it. Probably Rebecca will feel she ought to have some more too. I wonder what could have happened to your mother. Choir practice has never been this late before.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't know why she's in that old choir. She hasn't any more voice than an old crow, traipsing about the streets at this hour of the night. It's just about time you retired, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Good night, Martha. Good night, Mrs. Foster.
I'll tell Mr. Webb. I know he'll want to put it in the paper.
My, it's late.
Good night, Irma.
Real nice choir practice, wasn't it? Oh, Myrtle Webb, look at that moon. Huh, potato weather for sure.
Okay, so naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of those other people, but now that we're alone, I mean, really, it's the worst scandal that ever was in this town.
What?
Simon Stimson.
Oh, now, Luella.
But Julia, to have the organist of the church drink and drunk year after year, you know he was drunk tonight.
Oh, now, Luella, we all know about Mr. Stimson. We know about the troubles he's been through, and Dr. Ferguson knows about it too. And if Dr. Ferguson keeps him on and there's a job, well, then the only thing that the rest of us can do is just not notice it.
Not notice it, but it's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have. It doesn't happen anywhere near so often. My, I hate to go to bed on a night like this. I better hurry. Those children will be sitting up all hours. Good night, Luella.
Can you get home safe, Luella?
Oh, it's as bright as day. I can see Mr. Soames scowling in the window now. You'd think we'd been to a dance the way he's carrying on.
Well, we had a real good time.
Well, you're late enough.
Oh, why, Frank? It ain't any later than usual.
And you, stopping at the corner to gossip with a lot of hens.
Now, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come out and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight. Isn't that wonderful? What did you do with your time when I was away?
Oh, I read as usual. What were the girls gossiping about tonight?
Well, believe me, Frank, there is something to gossip about.
Simon Stimson, far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. How'd that end, Frank? I mean, Doc Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I guess I know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anybody in town. Some people ain't made for small-town life. I don't know how that'll end, but there's nothing we can do but leave it alone. Come on in.
Oh, no, not yet, not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
Oh, what are you worried about?
Well, I think it's my duty to make plans for you to get a real rest and a change. And if I get that legacy, well, I'm going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense in going over that again.
Oh, Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Come on, Julia, it's getting late. First thing you know, you'll catch cold. I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. I reckon you'll have your wood chopped for a while anyway. No, start getting upstairs.
Oh, dear, there's always so many things to pick up, it seems. Frank, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front door every night. All those people in that part of town do.
Well, they're all getting cityfied. That's the trouble with them. They haven't got nothing fit to burgle, and everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window.
Well,
You're always spoiling everything.
Let me look just a minute.
Use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think, do you? I think maybe the moon's getting nearer and nearer, and then one day there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting nearer, the guys that sit up all night with the telescopes would see it first, and they'd tell about it, and it'd be in all the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
It's 9:30. Most of the lights are out. Actually, no. There's Constable Warren trying a few doors on Main Street, and here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Good evening, Bill. Evening, Mr. Webb. Quite a mood. Yep. All quiet tonight? Simon Stimson is rolling around a little. Just saw his wife moving out to hunt for him, so I looked the other way. There he is now.
Good evening, Simon. Town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. Good evening. Yes, most of the town settled down for the night, Simon. I guess we better do the same. Can I walk you a long ways? Good night.
I don't know how that's going to end, Mr. Webb.
Well, he's seen a peck of trouble. One thing after another. Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, just give him a word, will you? He thinks a lot of you, Bill.
Oh, I don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. Leastways, not more than 2 or 3 a year.
Well, I hope not. Yeah, good night, Bill.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
I don't know. I just can't sleep, Papa. The moonlight's so wonderful, and the smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope. Can you smell it?
Yes. Have any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, enjoy yourself, but don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa.
I never told you about that letter Jane Crawford got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope, the address was like this. It said, Jane Crawford, the Crawford Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, United States of America.
What's funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. The United States of America, continent of North America, Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
What do you know?
And the postman brought it just the same.
What do you know?
Well, that's the end of the first act, folks. So we're going to take a brief 5-minute time to stretch our legs. Then we're going to come back and hear Magpie play. So you can go smoke now if you smoke.
supposed to be playing, we don't play till they sit down.
That's it. Tell the rose not to bloom, the stream to flow. Tell the rain not to fall, the tree to grow. Tell the high summer sky to lose its blue. But don't tell me that I don't belong with you. You could send me away and I would go. I would go, but I wouldn't go too far. You could send me home, but you would know. Home to me is anywhere you are. When I met you, there was nothing to decide. There was simply something happening inside. I felt strange for a minute, then I knew that I finally felt complete when I found you. You could send me away and I would go. I would go, but I wouldn't go too far. You could send me home, but you would know. Home to me is anywhere you are. There are those who never really know their minds. They're confused and they're not the staying kind. They don't know what they're really looking for. I don't suffer from that problem anymore. You could send me away and I would go. I would go, but I wouldn't go too far. You could send me home, but you would know. Home to me is anywhere you are. You could send me away and I would go. I would go, but I wouldn't go too far. You could send me home, but you would know. Home to me is anywhere you are. You could send me home, but you would know. Home to me is anywhere you are.
Three years have gone by. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rains have brought down some of the dirt. Some babies that weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences, and a number of people who thought they were right young and spry have noticed that they can't bound up a flight of stairs like they used to without their heart fluttering a little bit. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Now, nature's been pushing and contriving in a lot of ways, too. A number of people fell in love and got married. Yes, the mountain got away a bit, a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water went under the mill. And here and there, a new home was set up under a roof. Now, almost everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? Well, in our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Most everybody in the world climbs into their graves married. Now, the first act was called The Daily Life. This act is called Love and Marriage. There's a third act after this. I reckon you can guess what that's about. And it's 3 years later. It's 1904. It's July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time when most of our young people jump up and get married. As soon as they pass their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, looks like suddenly they feel themselves fit to be married. It's early morning. Only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden is drenched. Mrs. Webb's here, drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines are drenched. All yesterday over there on Main Street, the rain looked like curtains being blown along. May begin again any minute. And there you can hear the 5:45 for Boston. And there's Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb come down there to make breakfast just as though it were an ordinary day. Now, I don't have to point out to the women in my audience that those ladies they see before them, both of those ladies, cooked 3 meals a day, one of them for 20 years, the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They brought up 3 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, and never a nervous breakdown. It's like what one of those Middle West poets said, you gotta love life to have life, and you gotta have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
Giddy up, Bessie.
Here comes Howie Newsome delivering the milk. And there's Cy Crowell delivering the papers like his brother before him.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Cy. Anything in the papers I ought to know?
Nothing much, except losing about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had, George Gibbs.
Yeah, I reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases, too.
Yep, mighty fine ball player. Whoa, Bessie, I guess I can stop and talk if I have a mind to.
I don't see how he could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you, Howie?
Can't tell, Cy. Never had no talent that way. Bill, you're up early.
Well, I'm seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. River's been rising all night.
Cy Crowell's all worked up here about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir. That's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player, Cy. Even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Name of Hank Todd. Went down to Maine and he become a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how does the weather look to you?
It ain't bad. Maybe think it'll clear up in a little bit.
Morning, Howie. Do you think it's going to rain again?
Well, morning, Mrs. Gibbs. It rains so heavy, I think maybe it'll clear up.
I certainly hope it will.
How much would you want today?
Well, we're going to have a house full of relations, Howie, so it looks to me like I need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
My wife says to tell you we both hope they'll be very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. No, they will.
Well, thanks a lot, Howie, and tell your wife I hope she gets there to the wedding.
Well, yes, she'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Oh, good morning, Mrs. Webb.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Newsome. I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, ma'am, and 2 of the cream.
Will it start raining again, Mr. Newsome?
Just saying to Mrs. Gibbs as how it might lighten up.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Mrs. Newsome. We're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Look forward to being there. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. You're losing one of your
Frank
chicks.
Gibbs, don't you say another word. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
Well, the groom's upstairs shaving himself, only there ain't an awful lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us. Every now and then he says, "I do," to the mirror, but it don't sound convincing to me.
Oh, I declare, Frank, I don't know how he'll get along. Well, I've arranged his clothes and seen to he's put on warm things. Frank, they're too young. Emily just won't think of such things. He'll catch his death of cold within the first week.
You know, I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Oh, don't start, Frank.
I was the scarediest young fellow in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I'd made a mistake for sure, and when I saw you coming down the aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. But the only trouble was I'd never seen you before. There I was in the Congregational Church marrying a total stranger.
Oh, now how do you think I felt? Oh, Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things. It's a farce, really. It's just as a farce is what they are.
Oh, Julia Hersey, French toast.
Well, tain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
Well, how'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of the hours struck off.
Yes, I get a shock every time I think of George setting out to be a family man, that gangling thing. I tell you, Julia, there's nothing so terrifying in the world as a son. The relationship of father and son is the darndest, awkwardest.
Well, the mother and daughter's no picnic, let me tell you.
They'll have their troubles, I suppose, but that's none of our business. Everybody has a right to their own troubles.
Yes. People are meant to go through life 2 by 2. Tain't natural to be lonesome.
Julia, do you know the one thing I was scared of when I married you?
Oh, go on with you.
I was afraid we wouldn't have material enough to talk for more than a few weeks. I was afraid we'd run out and eat our meals in silence. That's a fact. Well, you and I have been conversing for 20 years now without any noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather, tain't very choice, but I always have something to say. Did you hear Rebecca stirring around up there?
No. Only day of the year Rebecca hasn't been managing everybody's business up there. She's hiding in her room. I got the impression she's crying.
Oh, Lord's sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca! Rebecca! Come and get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
Just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Oh, now, George, you put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents, and don't you go out of this house without you're prepared for it.
Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
George, you'll catch your death of cold, and you'll cough all through the service.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in any weather. But while you're in my house, you'll live wisely, thank you. And maybe Mrs. Webb isn't ready for a 7 o'clock visitor. Have a cup of coffee first.
Be back in a minute. Good morning, Mother Webb.
Goodness, you frightened me, George. Now, George, you can come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Why not?
George, you know well as I do, the groom can't see the bride on the wedding day, not until he sees her in church.
Oh, that's just a superstition. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George, and you don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How's Emily?
She hasn't waked up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep?
No wonder. We were up till all hours sewing and packing. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do. You sit down here a minute with Mr. Webb and drink this cup of coffee, and I'll go upstairs and see she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon, too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
Oh, fine. I'm fine. Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, you see, on her wedding morning, a girl's head's apt to be full of clothes, or one thing or another. Don't you think that's probably what it is?
Yes, I never thought of that.
Yes, a girl's apt to be might nervous on her wedding day.
You know, I wish a fellow could get married with all that marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived has felt that way about it, George, but it hasn't been any use. It's the women folk who build up weddings, my boy. For a while now, the women have it all their own. A man looks pretty small at a wedding, George. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure that that knot's tied in a mighty public way.
But you believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes. Don't you misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful thing, and don't you forget that, George.
No, sir. Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, you see, I'd been to college and I'd taken a little time to get settled, but Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is. Oh, and age hasn't much to do with it, George. Not compared with other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, I don't know. Was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other night of some advice my father gave me when I got married. Charles, he said, Charles, start out early, showing who's boss, he said. Best thing to do is to give an order, even if it don't make no sense, just so she'll learn to obey. And he said, if anything about your wife irritates you, her conversation, anything, just get up and leave the house. That'll make it clear to her, he said. And oh yes, he said, never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Well, Mr. Webb, I don't think I could.
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let that be a lesson to you, George, never to ask advice on personal matters. George, you're gonna raise chickens on your farm.
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Oh, Uncle Luke's never been much interested, but I thought...
You know, a book came into my office the other day, George, on the philo system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. I'm thinking of beginning in a small way in the backyard, and I'm going to put an incubator in the cellar, and then I'm going to make sure that that chicken farm is just the greatest thing.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two'd be talking about things worthwhile.
Oh. Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boys some good advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you alone with him.
George, Emily's got to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Myrtle, I guess you don't know about that other, older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the caveman, no bridegroom should see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding, or near it. Now, remember that.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. Now, I have to interrupt again here. You see, we all want to know how all this began, this wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like that begin. You know how it is. You're 21 or 22, and you make a few decisions, and then whoosh, you're 70, you've been a lawyer for 50 years. And that white-haired lady sitting next to you has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? Now, George and Emily are going to show you a conversation that they had when they first knew that, as the saying goes, they were meant for one another. But before they do it, I want you to try to remember what it was like to have been very young, when you were first in love. You didn't quite see the street you were in, and you didn't quite hear everything that was said to you. You're just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that? Now, they'll be coming out of the high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class, and as it's June, that means he'll be president of the senior class next year. And Emily, well, she's just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't have to tell you how important that is. Here they are coming down Main Street.
I can't, Louise. I have to go home. Goodbye. Oh, Ernestine. Ernestine, can you come over tonight and do Latin? Isn't that Cicero the worst thing? Well, tell your mother you have to. Goodbye. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Can I carry your books home for you, Emily?
Why, thank you. It isn't far.
Excuse me a minute, Emily. Say, Bob, if I'm a little late, start practice anyway, and give Herb some long high ones.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Lizzie. I'm awfully glad you were elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, since you asked me, I might as well say it right out, George. Goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Goodbye, Miss Corcoran. What? What is it?
I don't like the whole change that's come over you last year. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but I've got to tell the truth and shame the devil.
A change? What do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot, and I used to watch you as you did everything because we'd been friends so long, and then you began spending all of your time at baseball, and you never stopped to speak to anybody anymore, not even to your own family you didn't. And George, it's a fact, you've got awful conceited and stuck up, and all the girls say so, and they may not say so to your face, but that's what they say about you behind your back, and it hurts me to hear them say it, but I've got to agree with them a little. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry I said it.
I'm glad you said it, Emily. I never thought that such a thing was happening to me. I guess it's hard for a fella not to have faults creep into his character.
I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Oh, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father is, and far as I can see, your father is. There's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, I feel it's the other way around. That men aren't naturally good, but girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be perfect as a man because we girls are more nervous. Now I'm sorry I said all of that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily.
Now I can see it's not the truth at all, and suddenly I feel it isn't important anyway.
Emily, would you like an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Well, thank you, I would.
Hello, Stu, how are you? Good afternoon, Mrs. Slocum.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? Why, Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
She just got an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She almost got run over by that hardware store wagon. Everybody says that Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Well, now, you take a drink of water, Emily. You look all shook up. I tell you, you gotta look both ways when you cross Main Street these days. Gets worse every year. What do you have?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate, thank you, Mr. Morgan.
No, Emily, have an ice cream soda with me? 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's 125 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm talking to you. State inspector was in here yesterday, and now they're bringing in these automobiles. The best thing you can do is just stay home. Why, I remember when a dog could go to sleep on Main Street and nothing come along to disturb him. Oh, yes, Mrs. Ellis, what can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
No, don't think of that. We're celebrating our election. And then, do you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I've got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told me.
George, please don't think of that. I don't know why I said it. It's not true.
No, Emily, You stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me like you did. But you'll see, I'm going to change so quick. You bet I'm going to change. And Emily, I want to ask you a favor.
What?
Emily, if I go away to State Agriculture College next year, will you write me a letter every once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. Certainly seems like being away for 3 years, you'd get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners isn't a very important place when you think of all New Hampshire, but I think it's a very nice town.
The day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, I'll try to make my letters interesting.
You know, Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to agriculture school to be a good farmer.
Why, George?
Yeah, and some of them say that it's even a waste of time. You can get all those things anyway out of the pamphlets the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting old. He's about ready for me to start in taking over his farm tomorrow, if I could.
My.
And like you say, being gone all the time in other places and meeting other people, gosh, if anything like that can happen, I don't want to go away. I guess new people aren't any better than old ones. I'll bet they almost never are. Emily, I feel that you're as good a friend as I've got. I don't need to go and meet people in other towns.
But George, maybe it's very important for you to go and learn all that about cattle judging and soils and those things. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'll tell Pa about it tonight.
Why, George, I don't see why you have to decide right now. It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me about that fault in my character. What you said was right, but there was one thing wrong in it. And that was when you said that for a year I wasn't noticing people, and you, for instance. Why you say you were watching me when I did everything? I was doing the same about you all the time. Why, sure, I always thought that you were one of the chief people I thought about. I always made sure where you were sitting on the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you, but something's always gotten in the way. Yesterday, I was standing over against the wall waiting for you. You walked home with Miss Corcoran.
George, life's awfully funny. How could I have known that? Why, I thought you
Listen, Emily, I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to agriculture school. I think that once you found a person that you're very fond of, I mean a person who's fond of you too, and likes you enough to be interested in your character, well, I think that's just as important as college is, and even more so. That's what I think.
I think it's awfully important too.
Emily?
Yes, George?
Emily, if I do improve and make a big change, would you be, could you be?
I am now. I always have been.
So I guess this is an important talk we've been having.
Yes. Yes.
Wait just a minute. I'll walk you home. Mr. Morgan, I'll have to go home and get the money to pay for this. It'll only take me a minute.
What's that? George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me?
Yes, but I had reasons, Mr. Morgan. Look, here's my gold watch to keep until I come back with the money.
That's all right, George. Keep your watch. I'll trust you.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George. Not a day more. Got over your shock, Emily?
Why, yes, thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Well, now we're ready to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding, a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. Now, we can't get all of them into one wedding, naturally, and certainly not in Grover's Corners, where they're awfully plain and short. But in this wedding, I play the minister, and that gives me the right to talk about it a little bit. So, for a while now, the play gets pretty serious. Some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. Now, I don't know what that means, but I can guess. It's like Mrs. Gibbs said a few minutes ago. People were meant to live 2 by 2. Now, this is a good wedding, but people are so put together that there's an awful lot of confusion deep down in people's minds. So we thought that ought to be in our play too. The real hero of this wedding, of this scene, isn't on stage at all, and you know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellas said: every child born into the world is nature's attempt to create a perfect human being. Well, nature's been pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know that nature's interested in quantity, but I think she's interested in quality too. That's why I'm in the ministry. And don't forget all the other witnesses at this wedding, the ancestors, millions of them. They all set out to live 2 by 2 also. Millions of them. Well, that's my sermon. It wasn't very long anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. It came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily, sitting right there, eating her breakfast the way she's done for 17 years, and now she's going off to eat it in someone else's home. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, "I can't eat another mouthful." And she put her head down on the table and she cried. Oh, I've got to say it. You know, there's something downright cruel about sending our girls out into marriage this way. I hope some of her girlfriends have told her a thing or two. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I went into it blind as a bat myself. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. There they come.
Hey, George!
Hest, y'all!
Look at him, fellas. He looks scared to death.
Y'all!
George, don't look so innocent, you old geezer. We know what you're thinking. Don't disgrace the team, big boy.
All right. That's enough of that. There used to be an awful lot of that kind of thing at weddings in the old days, Rome and later. We're more civilized now, so they say.
Love divine, love excelling.
George, what's the matter?
Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Oh, why, George, you wanted it.
No, Ma, listen to me.
Oh, no, George, you're a man now.
Listen, Ma, for the last time, I tell you, all I want to do is be a fella.
George, if anyone should hear you now, stop. Oh, I'm ashamed of you.
What? Where's Emily?
Oh, George, you gave me such a turn.
Cheer up, Ma, I'm getting married.
Well, let me catch my breath a minute.
Now, Ma, you save Thursday nights. Emily and I are coming over to dinner every Thursday night. You'll see. Ma, what are you crying for? Come on, you gotta get ready for this.
felt so alone in my whole life. George over there looking so... I hate him. I wish I were dead. Papa.
Emily, don't get upset.
But Papa, I don't want to get married.
Emily, everything's gonna be all right.
Why can't I stay for a while just as I am? Let's go away.
Oh, no, Emily. Now stop and think for just a minute.
Don't you remember? You used to say all the time, that I was your girl. There must be lots of places we could go to. I'll work for you. I can keep house.
You mustn't think such things. You're just nervous, Em. George, will you come over a moment? Why, you're marrying the best young fellow in the world. George is a fine fellow. I'm giving away my daughter, George. Do you think you can take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to. I want to try. Emily, I'm going to do my best. I love you, Emily. I need you.
Well, if you love me, help me. All I want is someone to love me.
I will, Emily. Emily, I'll try.
And I mean forever. Do you hear me? Forever and ever.
Come. They're waiting for us. Come.
Do you, George, take this woman, Emily, to be your wedded wife, to have...
Oh, it's a perfectly lovely wedding. Loveliest wedding I've ever been to. I just love a good wedding, don't you? And isn't Emily a beautiful bride?
I do.
And do you, Emily, take this man, George, to be your wedded husband?
I don't know when I've seen such a lovely bride and such a lovely wedding, but I always cry. Don't know why it is, but I do. I just like to see the young people happy, don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
He's married over 200 couples in his day. Does he believe in it? I don't know. M marries N, millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times it's interesting. Well, let's have Mendelssohn's March.
Aren't they a lovely couple? I've just never been to such a nice wedding. I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say happiness, that's the great thing. The most important thing is to be happy.
That's the end of the second act, folks. We'll have a 5-minute intermission to stretch our legs, and then we'll come back and hear Magpie sing 2 songs.
We're going to begin with a song that Terry and I wrote. Where we live in the northern Catskills, there's a mile-long pond in the valley called the Vly. And at the southern end of the Vly, there's a small cemetery up in the woods. And in that cemetery is a rather large gravestone of a young man named Will Barringer, who was a soldier in the Civil War and was killed just a couple of months before the war ended. And we made up this song imagining what it might have been like for him down in the Southland at that time of year when spring is beginning in the South, but it's still winter in the North. Spring is in full flower here in the southern land. The days are getting longer and the trees in new green stand. They stand in bitter contrast to the ravages of war. I've a moment now to write you till I'm off to fight once more. Amidst the sorrow and the bloodshed floats a new springtime bouquet. It starts my heart a-yearning for my home so far away in the far northern mountains where this soldier grew. I am missing the Catskills and you. In my mind I see the eagles soar above the Vly, leaving their young in the nest as out for fish they fly. They know nothing of the conflict that has torn our land apart, nothing of the shattered families who mourn with broken heart. Amidst the sorrow and the bloodshed floats a new springtime bouquet. It starts my heart a-yearning for my home so far away in the far northern mountains where this soldier grew. I am missing the Catskills and you. I see the birds of springtime feed their babies from their beak, and our neighbors as they turn the soil along Schoharie Creek. I long to climb old Vroman's Cliff where the northern breezes blow, and view the greening valley where the gentle waters flow. Amidst the sorrow and the bloodshed floats a new springtime bouquet. It starts my heart a-yearning for my home so far away in the far northern mountains where this soldier grew. I am missing the Catskills and you. They tell us that this cruel war may soon come to an end, and we'll begin to heal the wounds our broken nation mend. So I hold the hope of peace in my heart every day, and hope to see you soon in our mountains far away. Amidst the sorrow and the bloodshed floats a new springtime bouquet. It starts my heart a-yearning for my home so far away in the far northern mountains where this soldier grew. I am missing the Catskills and you. Amidst
it's the sorrow and the bloodshed floats a new springtime bouquet. And though it starts my heart a yearning for my home so far away in the far northern mountains where this soldier grew, I am missing the Catskills and you. I am missing the Catskills and you. Your loving son, Will.
Well, it's an honor and a pleasure, and here's one from our friend Bill Staines called Spirit Song. And hopefully it'll set up Grover's Corner soon.
There stands a misty mountain in the soft and gentle rain, against the flight of endless time, forever to remain. Through all the passing seasons, through every night and day, I can see that misty mountain and I feel the Spirit say, oh brother, don't you weep,
Oh, brother,
oh brother, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh brother, don't you weep. Oh sister, don't you weep. Oh sister, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh sister, don't you weep. Down the rocky roads of trouble, up the twisted paths of pain. Sometimes it is a struggle, sometimes we come up lame. But with children on our shoulders, we face another day. And through their shining eyes of innocence, I can feel the children say, oh Father, don't you weep. Oh Father, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh Father, don't you weep. Oh Mother, don't you weep. Oh Mother, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh Mother, don't you weep. When there's music all around you and you just can't seem to hear, when the answer's just around the bend but it never shows up clear, and when there's darkness right above you, it's hard to know and understand, but there's a heart out there that loves you, and there's a promise in your hand. Oh, people, don't you weep. Oh, people, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, people, don't you weep. Oh, people, don't you weep. Oh, people, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh, people, don't you weep. There stands a misty mountain in the soft and gentle rain, against the flight of endless time, forever to remain. Through all the passing seasons, through every night and day, I can see that misty mountain, and I feel the Spirit say, oh brother, don't you weep. Oh brother, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh brother, don't you weep. Oh sister, don't you weep. Oh sister, don't you weep no more. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh sister, don't you weep. Sun's gonna shine on a golden shore. Oh sister, don't you weep.
This time, 9 years have gone by, friends. It's summer 1913. Gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rarer. Farmers are driving into town in Fords. Everybody locks their house at night. Ain't anybody been burglarized yet, but people have heard about it. You'd be surprised, though. On the whole, things don't change much around here. This is certainly an important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop, a windy hilltop, lots of sky, lots of clouds, often lots of sun and moon and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon and you can see a range of hills, awful blue they are, up by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee, and way up, if you got a glass, you can see the white mountains of Mount Washington, where North Conway and Conway is. And of course, our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock, is right here, and all the towns that lie below it, East Jaffrey and Peterborough and Dublin. And there, quite a ways down, is Grover's Corners. It's a beautiful spot up here. Mountain laurel and lilacs. I often wonder why people choose to be buried in places like Woodlawn and Brooklyn when they could pass the same time right here in New Hampshire. Now, over there are the Old Stones, 1670, 1680, strong-minded people that come a long way to be independent. Summer people walk around here laughing at the funny words on the tombstones. Don't do any harm. And genealogists come up from Boston. They get paid by city people for looking up their ancestors. They want to make sure they're the daughters of the Revolution or the Mayflower. Well, I guess that don't do any harm either. Wherever you come near the human race, there's layers and layers of nonsense. Now, over there are some Civil War veterans, iron flags on their graves. New Hampshire boys had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together, though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, friends, the United States of America. United States of America, and they went and died about it. Now this here, right here, is the new part of the cemetery, and here's your friend, Mrs. Gibbs. And let me see, there's Mr. Stimson, the organist from the Congregational Church, and Mrs. Soames, who enjoyed the wedding so much, remember? And a lot of others. Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst when he was a Boy Scout on a trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow has sort of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill. We all know how it is, and then time and sunny days and rainy days and snow. We're all glad they're in a beautiful place, and we're coming up here ourselves when our fit's over. Now, there are some things we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know that something is eternal, and it ain't houses, and it ain't names, and it ain't earth, and it ain't even the stars. Everybody knows in their bones that something is eternal, and that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years, and you'd be surprised how people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep inside every human being that's eternal. Now, you know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living people very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth and the ambitions that they had and the pleasures they had and the things they suffered and the people they loved. They get weaned away from the earth, weaned away from it, that's the way I put it, and they stay here while the earth part of them burns away, burns out. And all that time, they're slowly becoming indifferent to what's going on here at Grover's Corners. They're waiting for something they feel is coming, something important and great. Aren't they waiting for that eternal part to come out clear? Now, some of the things they're going to say, maybe you'll hurt your feelings, but that's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser. All those terribly important things kind of grow pale around here. And what's left when memory's gone and your identity, Mrs. Smith? Well, there are some living people. There's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a new-made grave. And here comes a Grover's Corners girl that left town to head out west.
Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me see, do I know you?
I'm Samantha Craig.
Gracious sakes alive! Of all people! I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Yes, I've been away over 12 years. I'm in business out in Buffalo now, Joe, but I was in East when I got news of my cousin's death. So I thought I'd combine things a little and come and see the old home. You look well.
Yes, yes. Can't complain. Very sad our journey today, Sam.
Yes.
Yes. I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll be here in a few minutes now. I had to come here early today. My son's supervising at the home.
Old Farmer McCarty. I used to do chores for him after school. He had the lumbago.
Yes, we brought Farmer McCarty here a number of years ago now.
Why, this is my Aunt Julia. I'd forgotten that she'd... Of course.
Yes, Doc Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago, about this time. And today's another pretty bad blow for him, too.
That's my sister Carrie's girl, Sam. Sam Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Oh, Simon.
Do they choose their own verses much, Joe?
No, not usual. Mostly the bereaved pick a verse.
This doesn't sound like my Aunt Julia. There aren't many of those Hursty sisters left now. Let me see. I wanted to look at my father's and mother's.
Over there with the Craigs, Avenue F.
He was an organist at church, wasn't he? Drank a lot, we used to say.
Nobody was supposed to know about it. He'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know.
Oh, did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course it got around. He chose his own epitaph. You can see it there. It ain't verse exactly.
Why, it's just some notes of music. What is it?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It was wrote up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of?
Who?
My cousin.
Oh, didn't you know? Had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. 'Twas her second, though. There's a little boy about 4 years old.
The grave's gonna be over there?
Yes. There ain't much more room over here among the Gibbses, so they're opening up a whole new Gibbs section over by Avenue B. You'll excuse me now. I see they're coming.
Who is it, Julia?
Oh, my daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Oh, well, I declare. The road up here must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth? Oh, I'd forgotten about that. My, wasn't life awful and wonderful?
Wonderful? Was it?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls ever graduated from high school. I've heard Principal Wilkinson say that time after time. I called on them in their new farm just before I died. It was a perfectly beautiful farm.
It's on the same road where we lived.
Yep, right smart farm.
Blessed be the ties that bind our
I always liked that hymn. I was hoping they'd sing a hymn.
The fellowship of kindred minds is like.
Hello, Emily.
Hello, Miss Gibbs.
Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily.
Hello. It's raining.
Yes. They'll be gone soon, dear. Just rest yourself.
It seems thousands and thousands of years ago since I... Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. Oh. I wish I had been here a long time. I don't like being new here. Hello, Simon Stimson.
How do you do, Emily?
Mother Gibbs, George and I have made that farm into just the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and the long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought that out of the money you left us.
I did?
Don't you remember, Mother Gibbs, the legacy you left us? Why, it was over $350.
Yes. Yes, Emily.
Well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs, and it never sinks below a certain mark they have there. It's fine. It won't be the same to George without me, but it's a lovely farm. Life people don't understand, do they?
No, dear.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. My boy is spending the day at Mrs. Carter's. Oh, Mr. Carter, my little boy is spending the day at your house.
Is he?
Yes, he loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford, too. Never gives us any trouble. I don't drive, though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away of being one of them? How long does it?
Shh. Just wait, dear. Be patient.
I know. Shh. They're finished. They're going. Look. Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he? Mother Gibbs, I never realized before how troubled and how in the dark live persons are. Look at him. I loved him so. From morning till night, that's all they are, troubled.
A little cooler than it was.
Yes, the rain's cooled it a little bit, yep.
Those northeast winds always do the same thing, don't they? If it isn't rain, it's a 3-day blow.
But Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there again. Into living. I feel it. I know it. Why, just then for a moment I was thinking about the farm, and for a minute I was there, and my baby was on my lap, plain as day.
Of course you can.
I can go back there and live all those days over again. Why not?
Well, all I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go back and live back there again.
Yes, some have tried, but they soon end up back here.
Don't do it, Emily.
Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'll be.
But I won't live over a sad day. I'll choose a happy one. I'll choose the day I first knew that I loved George. Why should that be painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes?
And as you watch it, you see the things that they never know. You see the future. You see what's going to happen afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here long enough, you'll see that our life here is to forget all of that and to think only of what's ahead and to be ready for what's ahead. And when you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life? That's all I knew. That's all I had.
Oh, Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't.
But it's a thing I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyway.
No, at least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day of your life. It'll be important enough.
Then it can't be since I was married or since the baby was born.
I can choose a birthday at least, can I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right, February 11th, 1899, a Tuesday. Do you want any special time of day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. You remember it had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before, and they had begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
There's Main Street! Why, that's Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it, and there's the livery stable?
Yes, it's 1899. This is 14 years ago.
Oh, that's the town I knew as a little girl. And look, there's the old white fence that used to be around our house. Oh, I'd forgotten that. Oh, I love it so.
Are they inside?
Yes, your mother will be coming downstairs in a minute to make breakfast.
Will she?
And you remember your father had been away for several days. He came back on the early morning train.
No.
He'd been back to his college to make a speech in western New York, in Clinton.
Look, there's Howie Newsome. There's our policeman, but he's dead. He died.
Whoa, Bessie, Bessie. Morning, Constable Bill.
Morning, Howie. You're up early. Been rescuing a party Don near froze to death down by Polish Town there. Got drunk and lay out in the snowdrifts. Thought he was in bed when I shook him.
Why, there's Joe Crowell.
Morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howie.
Children, Wally, Emily, time to get up.
Mama, I'm here. How young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come and dress by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry. Good morning, Mr. Newsome. Ooh, it's cold.
10 below by my barn, Mrs. Webb.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear, that's all. I laid it out for you special on the dresser there. If it were a snake, it would have bit you.
Yes, yes.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early.
Yes, just been back to my old college in New York State. Been any trouble here?
Well, I was called up this morning to rescue a Polish fella. Don near froze to death he was.
We must get that in the paper.
It wasn't much.
Papa.
Good morning, Mother.
How'd it go, Charles?
Oh, fine, I guess. I told him a few things. Everything all right here?
Yes, can't think of anything that's happened special. Been right cold. Howie Newsome says it's 10 below over at his barn.
Yes, well, it's colder than that at Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off. It ain't Christian. Hey, paper have any mistakes in it?
None that I noticed. Coffee's ready when you want it. Charles, don't forget it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Yes, I've got something here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Don't interrupt her now, Charles. You can see her at breakfast. She's slow enough as it is. Hurry up, children. It's 7 o'clock. Now, I don't want to call you again.
I can't bear it. They're so young and beautiful. Why did they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here. I'm grown up. I love you all. Everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Good morning, Mama.
Well, now, dear, a very happy birthday to my girl and many happy returns. There are some surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't.
But birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up and be a good, strong girl. That in the blue paper is from your Aunt Carrie. I reckon you can guess who brought the postcard album. I found it on the doorstep when I brought in the milk. George Gibbs must have come over in the cold pretty early. Right nice of him.
George, I'd forgotten that.
Chew that bacon good and slow. It'll help keep you warm on a cold day.
Oh, Mama. Just look at me 1 minute as though you really saw me. 14 years have gone by, Mama. I'm dead. You're a grandma, Mama. I married George Gibbs, Mama. Wally's dead too, Mama. His appendix burst on a camping trip to North Conway. We felt just terrible about it, don't you remember? But for a moment now, we're all together. Mama, for just a moment, we're happy. Let's look at one another.
That in the yellow paper is something I found in the attic amongst your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now. I thought you'd like it.
And this is from you? Why, Mama, it's just lovely, and it's just what I wanted. It's beautiful.
Well, I hoped you'd like it. Hunt it all over. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send all the way to Boston. Wally has something for you, too. He made it at that manual training class, and he's very proud of it. Make sure you make a big fuss over it. Your father has a big surprise for you, too. Don't know what it is myself. Shh, here he comes.
Where is my girl? Where is my birthday girl?
I can't go on. It goes so fast, we don't have time to look at one another. I didn't realize. So all of that was going on, and I never noticed. Take me back, up the hill to my grave. But first, wait. One more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama and Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking and Mama's sunflowers and food and coffee and new iron dresses and hot baths and sleeping and waking up. Oh, Earth! You're too wonderful for anyone to realize you. Do any human beings ever realize life while they live it every minute?
No. The saints and poets, maybe. They do some.
I'm ready to go back.
Were you happy?
No. I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are, just blind people.
Look, it's clearing up, and the stars are starting to come out.
Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to them.
Yes, now you know. Now you know. That's what it was to be alive, to move about in a cloud of ignorance, to go up and down trampling on the feelings of those about you, to spend and waste time as though you had 1,000,000 years, to be always at the mercy of one self-centered passion or another. Yes, now you know. That's the happy existence you wanted to go back to. Ignorance and blindness.
Simon Stimson, you know that ain't the whole truth. Emily, look at that star. I forget its name.
My son Jacob was a sailor. He knew them all. He'd sit on the porch evenings and tell them all by name. Yes, sir. Wonderful.
A star's mighty good company.
Yes, it
Here's one of them coming.
That's funny. 'Tain't no time for one of them to be here. Goodness sakes.
Mother Gibbs, it's George.
Shh, dear. Just rest yourself.
It's George.
And my son Jacob, who knew the stars, he used to say it took millions of years for that speck of light to get to the earth. Don't seem like a body could believe it, but that's what he used to say. 1,000,000 years.
Oh, goodness, that ain't no way to behave.
He ought to be home.
Mother Gibbs?
Yes, Emily?
They don't understand, do they?
No, dear. They don't understand.
Everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. The only lights on are down at the depot where Shorty Hawkins just watched the Albany train go by. And over at the livery station, somebody's setting up talking. There the stars doing their usual crisscross journey in the sky. Scholars ain't decided yet, but they seem to think there's no living beings up there, only chalk or fire. Well, there's this one straining away, straining as hard as it can to make something of itself. The strain gets so bad that every 16 hours, everybody needs to lie down and get some rest. Well, you get some rest too. Tomorrow is another day. Good night.
It's a pleasure to know you, a pleasure to see you smile, a comfort to know we'll share the road a while. Pleasure is fleeting and comforts are far between. It's a pleasure to know you and the comfort you bring. It's a pleasure to know you, a pleasure to see you smile, a comfort to know we'll share the road